Hello everyone, Dr. White here with the first in a series of screencasts on learning to use Git and GitHub. So we're going to assume that you are going to work from slides provided on Git. This is the part 1 Git slides, and in the first couple of lessons we will also be working on the RStudio server. So you'll want to have that open. Okay, so what's up? Git is a version control system that allows you to work on a project and keep track of the state of the files in that project, and to establish a history of the changes that you have made to those files so that you can go back to previous versions of files and restore them if you like. And also it allows you to share your work collaboratively with other people and allow them to make changes to those files in a way that so that you and the people you work with can keep track of the changes that you have all made, and when you occasionally step on each other's toes, to get out of those fixes easily. Git is therefore also something very useful for you when you're just working with yourself. If you leave a project for a while and come back to it, you'll want to know about your past history, and you'll want to be able to undo any bad changes that you make. So let's get started. The RStudio server is built on top of an operating system where the Git program has already been installed. So you're just going to need to configure it for your own use. So what we'll do is we'll go to the RStudio server, and sorry, I don't want to have jobs open. And in the window that has the console and the terminal, you're going to actually want to work with the terminal at the moment. So click on the terminal. You may have met the terminal before. It's the place where you most directly communicate with the operating system that underlies the server. This particular RStudio server I'm working with works with an Ubuntu operating system. So at the prompt, you can enter commands, but they're not going to be R commands. They're entered in a shell language. So what shall you do to configure Git? Well, you'll want to first configure your name. So I'm going to copy this template command here. And I'm going to put in my name. Notice that it's in quotes. So how does this looking? The command that you're issuing to the shell is git, and that activates the Git program. Config is a command within the Git software to configure things. -- global is an option, meaning here that what you say about your username is going to go for all your Git projects unless you override them sometime later for a particular project. What is it that you're configuring? It's your name. And what is the value of your name? For me, it's Homer White. Well, off we go. There's no response from the shell, but your name has been configured. The same way, we configure an email address. Now, in these applications, no one's actually going to know or use your email other than yourself, so you can just put whatever you like. So I'm just going to put my actual. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll put a fake email. How about me at example.com? And lastly, you want to configure what editor is going to be used if for some reason you need to edit a file through the console in the course of using Git. I suggest that the core editor should be Nano rather than some of the other editors that may be out there like VI. Nano is a little bit easier to use should you ever be forced to use it. But for the most part, when we're working on our studio, we're going to be able to do our editing through our studio's editor for files. And so this probably won't happen to us, but let's get it configured. Okay. What's up next? Well, we're going to start our first Git project, and it'll be in what's called a Git repository. We would like to set up a directory that would hold your projects. Now, frankly, I usually like to have a directory called Git. You can see it right here where I'm waving my mouse. And all of my version controlled projects go in that directory. We're going to, just as a matter of training, pretend that we've got two people, person A and person B, that maybe are going to work together on a project. And so, really, person A has her own computer and person B has a computer somewhere else. But for the sake of making this easy for us, let's just create two directories, a directory for person A to hold their Git projects and a directory for person B to hold their Git projects. So how do we do that? Well, you could use the RStudio server files pane to create directories, but you can also do it through the shell with shell commands. mkdir makes a directory. Here's the name of the directory you're going to make. So let's give that a try. Over in the shell, mkdir git_a. And you'll notice that appears in your home directory. Why does it appear in your home directory? The reason is that the active directory for the terminal at the moment is your home directory. The name git a is relative to the active directory, so it goes inside the home directory. So that's an empty directory at the moment. Let's make another one. mkdir git_b for person B. Okay, we're now going to pretend that we're person A and that we're starting a new project that will be version controlled. So heading back to the server, we're going to go to the project none up here, and we'll push the down arrow, and we would say we would like to make a new project. And we're going to do it in a new directory. And there are lots of different types of projects you can make. We're just going to make a generic one, new project. And the name of the directory where the contents of this project will be stored is, let's say, gitprac for git practice. Gitprac. And we want to create it as a subdirectory of whatever directory holds our Git projects. And so I happen to have git a right here. But if you don't have that, like if maybe it gave you just your home directory, like a twiddles or something else, you could still browse and you could, look for the directory that you want and choose it and then get it here. You also want to check create a Git repository. You do not need to check use R environment with this project. That's a more sophisticated thing for specifically people working with R. It keeps track of package versions that are used in a project. So we won't be pushing that. Anyway, let's create the project. And RStudio is going to rejigger itself. And when it opens up again, it gives you kind of a new introduction here at the console. And notice that the files pane is now pointed inside of this new directory gitprac inside of git a. And it has two files already made for you. RStudio did this for you. A gitignore file and a little project file that contains information about how you configure this particular R project. So you may not edit that file directly, but when you choose various options about how you like to store information, or whether you want to have a workspace restored or things like that when you go back into the project, RStudio edits this file for you. So let's see what else we need to think about. So I was just looking in the repository and I saw 2 files, but actually you can get a little more information if you work from the console. So head over to the RStudio server again and into the terminal, and notice now at the prompt you see that the active directory is actually the gitprac directory, no longer your home directory, and that's going to be good and convenient. Anyway, you can ask to list out all the files in the active directory with an ls command. And gee, you just get gitprac.rproj. What about .gitignore? Well, it turns out that the ls command will not show what are called hidden files. Those are files that whose names start with a dot. Typically, those are control files that ordinary users don't want to be messing with. Now, RStudio is a little smarter. It knows that people who start R projects usually want to see their gitignore file and would like to edit it. So RStudio makes an exception here and shows it to you in its file pane. But there's some others that it's not showing you. And here's a way to see them all. ls-a. -a is an option, meaning list them all. And then we get quite a bit more. We get dot. That's actually a code for the current directory. Dot is a reference to the parent directory, so that would be get A in this case. .rproj.user is stuff specific to the user who's working on this R project. And then we see the .gitignore and the gitprac.rproj, which was never hidden. But there's another hidden file. It's called .git. And actually, that's a directory. And it contains all the information about this as a Git repository. This folder is where the history of changes you make to the project are going to be stored. So you could actually get inside it if you want. cd.git will change the active directory to .git. Notice how it shows up here at the prompt. And now if you ls-a, you can see there's quite a few other files and directories. On this particular RStudio server and the way the theme looks, the directories are kind of a light color and the files are a darker color. Well, I want to get back though into gitprac, so I'm going to cd ... I'm going to use that ... reference to get back to the parent directory. cd just means change your active directory. So I'm back to gitprac. Okay. Now, what about that .gitignore? What is the function that it has? It's going to tell Git which files in your gitprac directory are actually not part of the project, things that you're never going to want to have tracked or recorded in any way. So let's take a look inside it and see what's in it right now. So I could just click on it right here, bing, and up it comes. And you can see that RStudio actually entered some file names into the .gitignore that it thinks really ought to be there. It's made some very smart choices, and I'm going to keep them. But I have an idea that I would like to establish my own little personal space that's not going to get tracked by this project, where I can throw files that maybe I want to work on or play with. So I'm going to just add in, at some point I'm going to add in a folder to the gitprac directory called Sandbox, which will be my little sandbox to put files that I don't want tracked. You could call it anything you want. You could call it George. I'm going to call it Sandbox. But I would like that directory to be ignored. So even before I make Sandbox, I'm going to go ahead and instruct Git to ignore files with that name. So let's go back to gitprac, and we'll just add a line, Sandbox. So now, should I make a directory called Sandbox, then Sandbox and anything inside of it is going to be ignored. So I'll save those changes. And let's go ahead and take a snapshot of our work so far. This snapshot is going to be recorded as part of the official history of the project. It's a good idea, first few times you do this, to check your status. And this can be done with the status command in Git. So let's give it a try. This is done at the terminal. So I click back to make sure I've got the terminal on top. I say git status. Okay, I'm on branch master. We'll talk about branches later. No commits yet have been made. No snapshots have been taken in this project. But it's detected some untracked files. So those are files that it sees that changes have been made since it was first woken up, and started to pay attention to this project. Certainly, I've made the changes to gitignore, and it was created in the first place, so that's definitely there. Also, the gitprac.rproj was created when RStudio made the project, and the Git program has noticed these changes. It says nothing has been added to the upcoming commit yet, but those untracked files are present, and it's wondering, do you want to add them into what's going to be included in the official history of the project? And it suggests to use the command git add. You could add the files one at a time. Like you could say git add dot git ignore. You could do that, and it would stage the dot git ignore. But the gitprac.rproj would still be unstaged. I'm just going to go ahead and add both of those files. And the easiest way, if you want to add all the files that it's detected, is just to say git add -- all. You'll notice in shell commands that the options, if it's more than one letter, they usually are preceded with a --. And if it's just a one-letter option, like the ls-a, then it's just one dash. Git add all. Okay, and let me just check git status and see what it says now. And so it still says on branch master no commits yet, but now since those files have been added, it says, hey, we've got some changes that are about to be committed should you decide to actually make the commit. If you wanted to go back on any of this, it even tells you how you could do it to unstage those files. I'm happy with those files and the changes I've made, so I'll be ready to do a commit in just a moment. So the way you do a commit is with git commit, and then it's really important, you have to use the option -m, which says you're going to make a commit message, and then you write your commit message in quotes. So let's give that a try. Git commit -m quotes, and this is just convention to call your first commit initial commit. And what comes back into the console output is that two files have been changed, and a record within the .git directory called a mode has been created for each of those files, and that'll help you keep track of the history of each of those files. Okay. Let's see what else we'll want to do. So we want to develop the project a bit. And I seem to actually, this version of the files is missing something. Oh, no, it's not. Let's just keep on going ahead. So why don't we make a new file that's going to be part of our project, and I'll call it test.txt. So head to RStudio and say File, New File, and let's make a text file. Way down here. So a text file doesn't have our code or anything like that in it. At least it would be recognized by RStudio as our code. It's going to be like text. And as soon as we've made it, it says untitled here. Let's say File Save As. Oops, wrong place. File Save As. Here I'm pointed at gitprac. That's where I'd like to be. I'm going to call it test.txt. Oops, did wrong. So I'm going to undo that. I'm going to rename the file over here. Hope you had better luck than I did. I had a little bit of code completion trouble. Okay, open back up again. So it's this empty file, and let's say I put some stuff in it. How about hello, and then new line, and then world. Hello, oops, there we go. Hello, world. And we'll save those changes. Okay, let's make something else. Let's make a README for our project, something to tell people what the project is about and how to use it. So let's go to File, New File, and again a text file, File, Save As, and save it as readme.md this time. The .md is going to help RStudio figure out that this is going to be a file that contains Markdown in it, and it'll show things in that way and give you some options for the file that are nice. So we save it like that, and let's give like a title. How about I don't know, Git practice and some explanation. This is just a practice repository for my CSC course or whatever it is that you're doing. Okay, let's save those changes. And let's go ahead and make that Sandbox directory where we can keep our untracked stuff. So we certainly could do this. At the editor here, we could say new folder, but you can also just go to the terminal, and as long as the active directory is at gitprac, then it makes sense to say mkdir, mkdir, Sandbox. Let's see if we can do it that way. There it is. And we could create a new file and save it inside the Sandbox using the RStudio way. Let me just show you that you can actually create an empty file from the command line with the shell command touch. And what you want to do is within the Sandbox directory, sandbox / you make your file. How about play.txt? Okay, there's no response to the console, but if you were to look inside the Sandbox, there's play. Or if you wanted to list it out the console, ls sandbox. That means list the contents of the Sandbox directory, and there it is, play.txt. Okay, let's go ahead and open up play.txt and edit it. This is just some play. And save our changes. Close it out. So let's check our status. So down in the terminal, hit status. And notice that it sees the two new files that haven't been staged yet, readme.md and test.txt. It doesn't see Sandbox or the file that Sandbox has inside of it, and that's because of what was in gitignore. So let's stage for commit and make the commit. So git add all those new files, and then git commit, make a message, and the message should describe precisely what you've done. And so you'll often find yourself making frequent small commits, each kind of new and different thing you do. You should record in that way. So let's see. Git commit -m adding test.txt and readme. Didn't mention the Sandbox because it's not even ever tracked as part of this project. Other people I share this project with actually aren't going to see my Sandbox. So it responds that's created a couple of new nodes. Great. So you've made a couple of commits now. You can actually see a little history of those commits with the command git log. So if you head back and in the console, they git log, then you've got your commits in reverse order that they were made, most recent first, and then the first commit is underneath that. The commits have long, complicated numbers that refer to them, or hexadecimal numbers, I guess they are, that refer to them. And the last one is where your so-called head is your current commit. Okay. You could also, if you push the Git button over here in the upper right-hand corner, there are ways to get the same kind of results. And so notice that you can actually like make commits using buttons. But I tend to want to teach you how to use the shell so that you can work with Git outside of RStudio. Now, RStudio also lets you look at the history if you push this little clock here. And you get a sort of a fancier look at the history. Okay, what else we got going here? We would like to, well, I'm gonna do this on a separate screencast because this one's getting kind of long. So see you later. In that next screencast, we'll set up a remote repository that we can record our changes at in such a way that other people can get at them and use our project. See you soon.